Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and today I'm going to craft with the Not Too Shabby Box of the Month, but I'm also introducing this stencil that I've designed to go with Easy Wonder die number 3. So if you have an electronic cutting machine like the Cricut, that's what I use to cut this out. This is going to be available on my website as an SVG file that you can download and create your own stencil with. So I've cut this out of Mylar because it's a little bit transparent and that helps to line things up. And as well, because it's just a plastic, you can easily clean it, save it, reuse it time and time again. So I've designed this. Now, if you'll notice, there's two what looks to be fairly identical grid layouts, but they are actually different. So Easy Wonder die number 3 looks like this, and the postage grid is this portion here. So when you look at this, if you line up the top of the stencil, it actually goes right to that stitched border. And so if you want to stencil, let's say like an inky background, right to the border, right to that stitching line, you can do that. Or if you prefer the lower portion of the stencil, it's actually sized so that it's a smidge smaller. So, and this is where having something like Mylar is really helpful because it is a little bit translucent, and so you can actually still see the stitching line there. And when you line this up onto your cardstock, you're going to be able to see it too, but you can kind of see there's about a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around. So if you want to actually stencil so that you still see a little bit of your postage grid, whatever color cardstock you've cut it out of, then you have that as a second option. And because the Easy Wonder die also has the add-on set that coordinates, these dies actually, when you layer them onto the grid, the add-on dies also they go right over the stitch border detailing because they also have stitch border details. So you can use the same stencil to actually stencil onto these die cuts as well. So you don't always have to use them as a postage theme. So you can see if I line this up with the add-on die, it actually goes right up to the stitch border detailing on the add-on die as well. And then you'll have like a very thin, slight border of your cardstock all the way around. So lots of different options, lots of different ways that you can craft with it. And this way, if you want to make maybe a flatter card that's easier to send through the mail, then you can do that because you don't have to die cut additional layers and add them, but rather you can start with stenciling a background, and you could maybe even keep everything mostly flat like I've done on this card. So here you can see an example of some ink blending that I did, and it's contained to within those stitch border stitching line details. And I actually used a stamp set that's a border stamp set from Not Too Shabby's Box of the Month. And I stamped this right through my stencil, and that gives me kind of the look of this triptych where the gap actually, because the stencil covered it, it's covered, but it's still sort of seamless. And so it's one stamping because this is just a single stamp that went all the way across. And so you can create really fun scenes like that have that break in between by just stamping right through your stencil. So I'm going to show how to make something similar to this, and we might change it up. Maybe I'll go for like a little bit of a sunset background. So let's do that. I'm gonna clear everything away and then probably speed up the rest of the video, but I want to show you in real time how to use the stencil with the die set. So you want to start first by choosing whatever color you want to build your postage grid out of. So what I did already was I just took some white cardstock, and instead of die cutting the entire Easy Wonder die, I just put some white cardstock just over the portion that is going to be the postage grid. And you can always do that if there's just like a couple elements, because these Easy Wonder dies just have a lot of basic shapes that you can craft with. You don't always have to cut them out of 6x6 pattern paper or even cut out the entire die, whether it's pattern paper or solid color cardstock that you're cutting into. You can always just, use your scraps and cut the portions that you want. And so that's what I've done already. I've already die cut out just the postage grid. And then I'm going to clear things away, and then I'll show you how to use and how to line up the stencil. Okay, so I'm going to start with putting down like a grippy sticky mat. And that way I can just stick this on here and it'll hold that in place, and it'll hold the stencil in place as I work with it so that it doesn't slide around. I've already thought a little bit ahead, and I think what I might like to do is I think I might like to use this image because it's got a little bit of water, a little bit of sand. I think this is maybe like a grassy cliff or something, and then it's got water on this edge. And then there's sort of sky above, but it's a nice silhouette style of stamp. So what I'm thinking I might like to do is I think I'm going to ink blend from maybe this horizon line upwards, a nice little sunset perhaps. And then I'm going to stamp this out, and then maybe I'll ink blend this part with blue or use some alcohol markers to color in this portion, or maybe keep it black and white. We'll see. But that's sort of what I think I'm going to go for. So what I want to do, I'm going to show you a couple different things. First, I want to line up my stencil. I think I'm going to use the stencil that has, that goes all the way to that stitch border detailing. So I'm just going to, I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to line this up right on the line. So that looks about right. And the nice thing with the grip mat is that you can kind of press into this a little bit and it's going to hold the stencil as well. So we've got that. Now, because I've got a little bit of water down here, a little bit of land here, what I want to do is mask off a horizon line. So maybe that's going to put it at about, looks like halfway through one of those. Let me see. So I just want to do a little bit of planning because I don't want my sunset to go into where the water is. So I think kind of where that third, right below that third hole there is maybe where I want the sunset to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some washi tape and do a quick little mask at the bottom there so that I don't ink blend where I want to put that water line. So I'm going to just grab whatever washi you have, just something nice and low tack. And if you don't have anything low tack, what you can do is you can take some regular tape and just put it on your skin or on your clothing so that it picks up some of that like your skin cells or your dust from your clothing or fibers from your clothing, and it just helps to make it less tacky. So that doesn't quite cover everything. So what I might do is, just in case, I'm just gonna put a little bit of scratch paper. Okay, so now this is definitely blocked and I won't be inking over any of that there. So next up, I want to start to do my ink blending, and I'm gonna ink blend all the way through this so that it's one continuous sky. But because the stencil is blocking, you know, these border pieces, it's gonna look nice and contained within each of these grid spots. So let's zoom out a little, and then I like to just start with the top and the bottom, and then I do the middle color in between. So that the middle color, if it picks up a little bit of both, it's gonna be totally okay. And it won't, if it cross-contaminates a little bit, then it's not quite as bad, because I'm gonna go yellow, orange, and red. Just a little bit of red at the very bottom. So if the orange picks up a little bit of the yellow, that's okay. And if the orange picks up a little bit of the red, totally okay. So that's why I like to start with the two ends and then blend in the middle. And I'm gonna extend the yellow down further than where I want it to really end, so that way, and when I extend it further, it's just going to be lighter pressure. That way, when the orange goes over it, it helps to create a little bit of a smoother blend towards the top. And I'm gonna get my red, put a little bit of red at the bottom, and make sure this is nice and burnished so that you have a nice well-defined line there for the horizon. And I'm gonna start off and then bring the red in, because I don't really want a lot of red, I just want a little bit. But I do want it to be very, very red at the bottom. And again, same thing, if it extends a little bit further, that's good, because it just helps when you bring in the orange. It'll help to blend a little bit with the orange when that comes in. You can see most of the color is actually on the washi here, or on my paper, because I just want a very thin line of red at the bottom. Mostly I want the sky to be orange and yellow, because red is a really, really strong color, so I don't want to put too much of it. Okay, I think that's good. Now for the orange. And I don't have a Versacolor in orange, but VersaFine is also a pigment ink, so this should blend really nicely as well. And I'm just gonna go right in the middle, bring it down towards the bottom, and bring it up into the yellow as well. You can see these blending buddies are really great. They just deposit so much color. And I don't really, because I mostly use them with the same inks, I don't really clean it. Gotta admit, don't really clean these out. So every time I use it, it's more or less with the same colors. And so it does always have a fair bit of color already there from the previous time. But it just gives you such a beautiful blend. So I'm just gonna softly bring this up a little bit more into the yellow, and then I'm gonna come back with some more of that yellow, just to, again, help to smooth out that transition. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the red also, just to brighten up the red at the bottom. And the other thing that you can do, if it helps, because this is such a small line, is you can use a smaller brush, and that might help to just focus more right into that bottom edge here. So you can really get it nice and red at the bottom without it extending too far up. But as I'm blending, I don't want any, I don't really want any harsh brush strokes or lines. So I'm going to do the swirling action, but I'm also going to bring those swirls upward so that, because it's a pigment ink and it's sitting at the surface of the paper, it's nice because it does help you to, for me anyways, I feel like I get a smoother blend this way with pigment inks. So now I'm really happy with that because now the red at the bottom looks very, very bright. And I'm going to do something similar at the top. I'm going to bring in some more yellow and brighten up the top a little bit and also bring it down into that orange. There we go. And you can go back and forth like this as many times as you feel like you want to get the transition, the smoothness that you want. You can bring some of this orange back, and there you have it. So that is going to be step 1. So I've got my sunset line in. And the next thing, don't lift your stencil up too early because if you want to do something similar to what I did here, where I took one stamp and I stamped across multiple little squares or grid spots on the postage grid, then you need to leave your stencil in place. So what I want to do though is I want to actually transfer this, which would be tricky, because I can remove this part though, because this is where I plan to be stamping. So you can carefully remove your washi. But I want to keep the stencil in its spot. And I do want to stamp right into that. So if you feel though that you want to use a stamp positioning tool, since it's a silhouette stamp and we're stamping onto some pigment ink, so it might actually be a good idea to put this into a stamp positioning tool. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got my Misty here, and I'm actually going to take the mat that I have. I'm going to take that out, and instead I'm going to put this in so that everything stays in place. So I can pick this out too. Okay. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to grab the stamp that I picked out earlier and position this. And I'm going to stamp this in black. And so parts of it is gonna hang over because I'm trying to match this horizon line right on the inked up line. And then that way we have some of the image crossing up into this grid. Most of it's going to be in this grid, and some of it even crosses over here as well. And let's see how that looks. Pick that up. Okay, and let's ink it up in some nice VersaFine Onyx Black. So very, very black ink. I love it. It's my favorite black ink. So I don't really know how much of the water lines I want to add. I might actually wipe some of that off. Because it's in the stamp positioning tool, I can always add that back in if I wanted. So let's just see what it looks like without it first. So I'm just gonna wipe, I'm gonna keep the horizon line, but just all the water lines, I think I'm gonna wipe a lot of that off. Okay. So now let's see. The land I think is okay, and definitely want the palm trees and the birds. Just a little bit of water lines at the top. All right. So you can see I cleaned off this portion, all the water lines. I'm gonna keep the land and the palm trees. Now, because I am inking over a stencil, you might need to add a little bit of extra pressure just so that it clears, that thickness of the stencil and hits the paper. So you can see here, like, we have some that's a little bit spotty. Totally okay. Just means that you might need to press a little bit harder. Actually, some of it is just because that's just where the image was clipped. But you can see, like right at the bottom there, I don't think I inked it well enough. So I'm just gonna add some more ink. Re-ink this. And get a little bit of this bottom portion. So you can see. So I'm just aiming to ink this bottom portion here, trying not to get too much of the water, because I think I might want to extend that water all the way across, and the ink doesn't go, or the stamp doesn't go that far, so I might just have to color that in, maybe use some alcohol markers, we'll see. So that's much better. So now I just have basically like the land portion, and then the rest of this I can still color it in, ink it up maybe, and make it watery, but I don't have all of the lines, the water lines in the stamp set. So I kind of like that. I think everything else stamped pretty nice. So let's take this out and we can do the reveal. Actually, I don't want to do the reveal just yet because I think I might want to, not sure if I want to ink or color that in. So everything that you want to do, that you want to keep confined to those grid locations, you want to do that while your mask is still on your project. So don't remove your mask until you're 100% done. So I think what I want to do is, if you wanted to do some inking here, what you would do is mask off the top portion. Just like we masked off the bottom portion, you would put some washi over the top. But actually, I think I'm going to go in with a marker, maybe a color pencil or some watercolor. We'll see. So let's peel this off. And then we'll get the fun reveal of this stenciling. Look at that. See how everything's just fitting right perfect inside all of those grid locations? And you have the image kind of crossing over into multiple spaces. So I love that look. And I think what I'll do is just some really easy watercoloring. And I'm going to actually speed up the rest of this video because the main thing I wanted to show very carefully was one way to use the stencil that goes with the Easy Wonder die number 3. And the rest of this card is going to come together pretty quickly. I am using my Albrecht Dürer from Faber-Castell watercolor pencils, and these are my favorite watercolor pencils because they are so pigmented. You get what's referred to as like the sort of color payload is really fabulous because you don't need to scribble on too much, but once you activate it with water, you can see how vibrant and intense that becomes. Now, I don't want to use too much water because I did only stamp this onto cardstock, not watercolor paper. And so the other way I like to use my watercolor pencils is to scribble it onto, this is actually a Caran d'Ache palette that is designed for watercolor pencils like this because it's got some grit to it, and so when you scribble onto it, it really picks up the pigment from the pencil. And so I scribbled on a couple different colors and I just watered it down from there and picked up just what I needed. So you can use watercolor pencils in a variety of different ways. You can color and then activate the pigment the way that I'm doing here, or scribble onto a palette, activate and mix your color off your project, and then bring that back onto your project. So I really love using the stencil and stamping and coloring right onto that postage grid because then you can keep your card relatively flat. You don't need to add a lot of mats and layers. Certainly, I do love layering, and that's why I designed the add-on die set to go with the Easy Wonder die number 3. But if you want something to go through the mail, like pretty, assuredly, where you're not going to have to risk it coming back to you because of insufficient postage, sometimes having flat cards is really nice, and that way you don't even have to worry about it. You know that a single regular stamp is going to get it to its destination. And that's one of the nice things about just doing everything directly onto this postage grid. So I decided to stamp my sentiment right in that upper right hand grid location, and I always see this postage grid in landscape orientation, but you can always rotate this and craft with it in the portrait or tall orientation as well. There's no top or bottom either, so you can rotate this every which way, and it's really versatile for that reason. And you can even snip these little stamps apart as well if you want. And so I couldn't help it. I had to pull out the special delivery stamp set that Jamie designed to go with my Easy Wonder die number 3. And it's got a lot of really fun postage themed stamps that you can use to just, really give it that look of, a piece of mail going through. So I really love that. Especially, I think my favorite has to be the postage cancellation stamps. Really love those, but you've got a lot of really fun different sentiments, different images, and I do also love that Jamie included one that says holiday because this is going to be great. You can use it all year long, and you can this is definitely one of those very general purpose stamp sets that is really fun to craft with. And I decided for this one, I am going to put my postage grid on a bit of a wonky angle. And here's a close-up look. So you can see I did a little bit of partial inking of the stamp set from the box of the month. This one is Sandy Toes. The Greetings from Paradise and the other postage themed stamps are from Special Delivery. And it's a really flat card that's going to ship beautifully, and I just have a lot of fun with using the stencil. And that was just one of the two stencils, so that's one look that you can create. And if you wanted, you could create a different look, and I'll show you that in a separate video. Thanks for checking out my video today. I'm going to leave links to everything, including the postage grid stencil SVG file if you want to grab that from my website. Everything else that I crafted with, you'll be able to find on the Not Too Shabby website. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.